Whenever someone from Hollywood speaks about adapting a video game, it gives you a clear understanding of why these adaptations typically fail. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
One of my fondest video game memories is playing through The Last of Us for the first time. Being someone who values a great story in any form of media, I truly appreciated the cinematic feel to that game. A deep emotional story that had you invested in the characters you were playing as. In fact, I would say I've played some video games in my day that had more engaging stories than anything coming out of Hollywood. I think it's actually something that the medium doesn't get much credit for.
No shit.
And honestly, I don't think the hacks in Hollywood recognize the fact that fans are invested in these types of games because of the story that is being told. This is why movie or streaming service adaptations of video games typically miss the mark. Because the individuals who are adapting them don't understand what makes them so appealing to people. Games like The Last of Us or Uncharted should be the easiest thing in the world to adapt to a live-action story. Mostly because those types of games are already quite cinematic.
That makes sense.
Now, I understand having to take some liberties to make the story work in a new medium, but at the very least, you should have a clear understanding of the core elements of that said game to be able to effectively make that transition. And time after time, we've seen video game adaptations fail to do just that. Now, there's a lot of hype around Hbo'S adaptation of The Last of Us. And we'll have to wait and see if that hype pays off in the form of quality entertainment when that show is released later this month.
You'll see.
But it appears that the show's creators are shooting themselves in the foot once again, with all of their recent comments about their creative process while crafting this show. Stop me if you've heard this before. Does anyone notice that doing interviews with the media typically causes these projects more harm than good? So here's a thought, maybe just stop doing them. A couple of weeks ago it was revealed that the violence in the show will be scaled back compared to the game.
Why?
Because the showrunners felt like those moments would be more impactful if they are few and far between. And if you've actually played The Last of Us, you know that that couldn't be further from the truth. And honestly, it doesn't say much for the story and the characters in the show if this is what you're worried about. It's the showrunner's job to make us care about these characters through the story, so when and if something happens to them, we actually give a shit. That's storytelling 101.
Put some effort into it!
But it didn't stop there, it actually got worse. Because this week, believe it or not, The Last of Us showrunner actually managed to insult the game itself. I mean, at this point, you can't make this shit up. Screenwriter Craig Mazin said, quote, "When you're playing a section, you're killing people, and when you die, you get sent back to the checkpoint. All those people are back, moving around in the same way. Watching a person die, I think, ought to be much different than watching pixels die." Talk about insulting the source material and not really knowing your audience.
Fuck me, right?
Now, I don't expect everyone to understand this concept. Perhaps you actually need to play these games to get it. On the surface level, yes, you get multiple opportunities to accomplish your goal even if you die. But to essentially suggest that death means nothing in the game world just comes off as very ignorant to me and not very smart for a business model. Because this person isn't really taking into account the amount of time and effort some people put into these games that ultimately make these deaths sting a little bit more. It's all about overcoming that challenge. That is the essence of the video game experience. To be that dismissive of that tells me that you don't understand why people are so connected to these stories and why they get invested in these characters. You don't understand what it's like to actually be a part of those stories, to play through those stories, and to experience them rather than just watch them.
Damn right, that's the only way I work, Cap.
I could actually make an argument that a video game death is more impactful. Because in that medium, you are more personally connected to what's going on. Don't believe me? Look how many people lost their fucking minds when Joel was killed off in The Last of Us 2. You think that was just because he was replaced with a less interesting character? No, it's because many people spent a lot of time with pixelated Joel. And believe it or not, they formed a connection with him and didn't want to see him go out like that.
This is whack! I can't get jiggy with this shit.
I'm starting to question whether or not the people who create these shows actually think before they speak. Or is it simply that they don't give a shit? It could go either way. This is the type of shit that makes it very difficult for me to get invested in shows like this. If it's not a blatant disregard for the source material, it's a blatant disregard for the basic fundamental appeal of these games. And that is exactly why most of these adaptations typically suck.
That's right, it stinks.
These people creating them usually have no respect for the video game medium, and that's a shame because it has a lot more to offer if you actually give it a chance. From the moment they casted Pedro Pascal as Joel, I honestly didn't have high hopes for this show. Because even that casting decision screams that they don't understand what they are adapting. He doesn't fit as Joel, just like Tom Holland didn't fit as Nathan Drake. Hollywood has so little respect for these characters that they think they could just plug any it actor of the time into that role and no one is going to complain about it.
It's Hollywood, baby. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Well, I'm going to question it because I don't care how popular that actor may be on Twitter. If they aren't right for the role, then they aren't right for the role. And in a lot of ways, I feel like the people who actually played the games have a better understanding of that character than the people who are making this adaptation. And that is the reality of this situation.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
The Last of Us on HBO might end up being a decent show on its own. But will it feel like The Last of Us? Will it recapture the tone of the game? And will it make us connect with these characters in the same way we did when we played as them? That remains to be seen, but if history tells us anything, it's that Hollywood typically has no idea what they have in these properties, and by the time they figure it out, it's usually too late.
You fucked up.
Y'all be cool. Right on.